At our speaker's discretion, there are PDFs for the presentation that may be made available. You'll get an email afterwards on which actual ones had presentations, so you're able to download those and look through them. And I think that's about it. Without further ado, please welcome Matthew Olson. I'll let him go ahead and tell you about himself.
Thank you. Normally when I speak, I don't have the privilege of a microphone, so if I get a little loud, please let me know. Again, my name is Matthew Olson. I run a marketing agency in Wisconsin called Signal Fire. We get to do a whole bunch of fun design and social media and other stuff. But ultimately, what it comes down to is we help businesses tell their story online. And one of the biggest challenges that we face as business owners is when people respond to those stories by giving us an online review or giving us some insight into how well we do, it's always a good opportunity to respond to that. So as we dive into this, quick question for you. How many of you actually own your business or manage it? And keep those hands up. And how many more of you are managing the marketing associated with it? So when you have the idea of someone turning around and leaving a review about your business, now honestly, how many of you have looked at a review and gone, funny, I don't remember that. So what is the big deal about online reviews? What's all the commotion about? Why do people get so up in arms, especially as business owners, over the whole idea of someone leaving a review? Well, honestly, reviews online, regardless of the platform, whether it be Google, Facebook, Yelp, Home Advisor, we'll go through the list of them later, but regardless of where the review is, bottom line is 91% of shoppers 18 to 34 will count an online review as valuable as a direct referral from someone they know. So it's easy to go, oh, does anyone really care what millennials think anyways? Well, here's the trap to that. Guess what? This year, millennials turn 40. Part two, the average first-time home buyer is 32 years old. Uh-oh. That means those millennials are buying homes. They're needing all kinds of home-based services. So as you start looking at what's the value of the service, 89% will actually read the responses to reviews. So, show of hands, how many of you have responded to reviews? Fantastic. How many of you actually respond to every review? Oh, good, got some rock stars in here. So as you start looking at, oh man, you've got these reviews, they're starting to pile up, what's the value behind that? Well, believe it or not, if you're responding to reviews and you're actually getting good reviews, those consumers, on average, can spend up to 30% more than people who are simply not. So there's an intrinsic value to show that, hey, I'm going to take a look at the online reviews as well as respond to them. Hey, I recognize that this is the modern word of mouth. So when we start looking at the whole idea of why, you start getting to 72% take action after reading positive reviews. That means that good reviews inspire action, and that's a good thing. There's also ways you can turn negative reviews into positive outcomes, and we'll start going through some of that a little bit later. Bottom line is, those online reviews are very quickly becoming the modern day testimonials, the modern day referral network. You know what, everyone says, hey, you know what, word of mouth is so important. And what do we get when we start getting good review traffic? Well, all of a sudden, you start realizing that Bob from Algonquin turned around and saw the review from George out of Lake Geneva and said, hey, that guy had a very similar experience to what I'm looking for. So they're going to look at those reviews and recognize that, hey, this is just the same situation as mine. So when you respond to that review, and you start looking at that review as an opportunity to not only thank them, but also build upon that and recommend, hey, what else can you do? You're starting to recognize you're connecting and building more authentic experiences with that. But also, when people see that those reviews are recognized, acknowledged, and appreciated, even the negative ones, all of a sudden consumers are feeling more empowered. Hey, you know what? This company thinks my opinion is important, thinks my customer service experience is important. And so you start building that rapport with potential customers even before you're meeting with them. So as that continues to snowball and you get more reviews and the discussions going back and forth, you're starting to build online trust. And that's one of the best things that you can start connecting with people and starting to get, because in all honesty, the first thing most people are going to see from your business is something like this. This is kind of what's sometimes reviewed to as the Google Snack Pack. Those first set of reviews that come up in either a Google map or on the top of your Google search, simply by saying, hey, I'm looking for a landscape architect near me. I'm looking for a landscaper near me or near a certain community. They'll start sorting them geographically, but then all of a sudden you start looking at those results and saying, well, horticulture services, they got a 5 stars, that's fantastic, that's only 1. Versus specialty landscaping, wow, they got 4.7, well, but they've got 43 reviews. And as you start looking at how that kind of starts shaking out more and more, believe it or not, when people start looking at those reviews, believe it or not, they're suspicious of someone with a 5-star rating. Oh, that's almost too good to be true. Believe it or not, Google's best recommended range for your reviews is probably going to be anywhere between 4.4 and 4.6. We do a lot of work in tourism and destination marketing, and one of the things that we come across with restaurants, with hotels, with service businesses across the board, people are skeptical. They're cynical. Shoppers are very, very investigative in terms of online reviews. So when you start taking a look at this, this is what those reviews are some of the first things people are going to see. And it's not just Google. It's going to be all the different platforms, whether it be Houzz, whether it be Thumbtack, whatever you're using, make sure that you're recognizing this is where people are looking. Now, here's the thing that started really biting about a year or 2 ago. Your reviews, how quickly you respond to them, and the content within the reviews is now being indexed by Google. Those reviews will impact your search engine performance. So paying attention to that and responding to that in a timely manner should have air quotes around it, and it's going to be very subjective. It's going to become played a more and more important role as you go through. But looking at that, those customers are starting to dig deeper. They're not just going to read one review. They're not just going to read your Google reviews. They're going to read 6 to 8 different reviews about your business from a variety of platforms. Customers are becoming more and more savvy to what the internet has to offer. So as we start taking all of this and putting it all together, we want to start figuring out, you know what? How much is this going to take of my time? Where do I need to put my attention? Where do I need to start investing in monitoring all of this? So let's look at some of the different players for the online review and online reputation world. Love them or hate them, it's Google. How many of you have claimed your businesses on Google? Do you have your Google My Business app on your phone? Are you making sure you're getting your notifications? The tools Google gives you to monitor and manage your business, not just from reputation, but also via location, is fantastic. And it gives you, go ahead.
Somebody asked what that was, that Google My Business. Could you maybe?
Oh, no problem. Google My Business, and that's the little logo for it. Google gives you a google.com/business, the opportunity for you to claim your business in Google Maps, or to, if it's not listed in Google Maps, for you to create a profile. Now, that profile in Google My Business will allow you to respond to reviews, allow you to put in keywords, allow you to put in photos, even allow you to post helpful tips. Now, there's another edge to this sword. Google My Business will also allow people to ask questions that anybody can answer. So the Google My Business Q&A section is definitely something that with the mobile app, it'll give you notifications whenever someone posts there. So staying on top of that and making sure that Google app is handy is a fantastic tool. Thanks for the question. Facebook. Now, about 18 months ago, Facebook changed from an actual rating system, I give you 3 stars, I give you 5 stars, to an actual recommendation. It's more of a pass-fail. Will someone recommend your business or not recommend your business? The good news is, the pass-fail tends to be positive, negative, and more often than not, people are positive. But the downside is that gets posted straight to their stream and your stream. So all of their friends see that your performance, as well as everybody connected to your Facebook page. So it's important to make sure that someone's checking in on Facebook on a regular basis. The recommend versus not recommend tends to also have commentary with it. So as we start diving into, why do you respond to reviews, we'll go through how to craft a good one. Yelp. Anyone in the room work for Yelp? Okay, good. I hate Yelp. Not a little, I really hate Yelp. Simple reason is they are not on business's side. They would sometimes promote negative reviews, downplay positive reviews. They really want you to advertise with them, but ultimately, there is no recourse for addressing fake or fraudulent reviews or negative reviews that might be a little off base, and we'll cover how to tackle all that here in a minute. But ultimately, it comes down to, regretfully, it's the #3 review platform behind these two in the world. So it's something you gotta pay attention for. And the reason I ask if anyone from Yelp is here is because I would say never, ever, 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 ever pay Yelp, because then they got their hooks in you. Don't. You can respond, you can claim your business, and connect with your business review platform on Yelp, but don't fall into the pay for it trap. So as we start diving into some of the other review platforms, you have Angie's List, you have Houzz, you have Home Advisor, and you had Thumbtack. All of these are very consumer-driven platforms where you have consumers seeking direct input from other experienced consumers, your reviews, their feedback. Yes, you can pay, yes, you can get promoted through them, and they can be fantastic platforms for that. But ultimately, it's one more platform to check. And it's good to stay on top of it now. Is it something that you have to watch with eagle eyes every single day? That's gonna depend on your business. That's gonna depend on where, you're going to know where your sales come from. Pay attention to the platforms that funnel those leads into your business, and you can start playing favorites with that. But wait, there's more. Porch, Consumer Reports, Amazon Home Services, HomeStar, HomeServe, Mr. Handyman, you go down the list. There are more platforms than you can count, and I wish this was a comprehensive list. But there are hundreds of review platforms with more growing every day. How do you know what to look for, what to pay attention to, and what to stay on top of? It is not practical or not realistic to say that, hey, yeah, I think you should make sure you go through and claim all of those for your business. But the good news is, sometimes Google can be your friend, and no, I don't work for Google. But looking at your business's analytics, your website, and simply talking to your customers or prospects will tell you where they're coming from. And that's going to be a good way to start measuring which platforms you pay attention to. One of the biggest principles that, at least for my business, that I've always tried to tell our clients is let data drive your decisions. The good news with all of these platforms is they do leave digital fingerprints. You'll see traffic inbound from these in something like Google Analytics or website traffic. So there's a way to start evaluating them and measuring them. And yes, Google Analytics can be intimidating and scary as can be, but the good news is once you know what to look for, it can be a really valuable tool. So let's get into the meat and potatoes. How many of you have gotten a bad review? Honest? Okay. How long before you could calmly respond to it? A couple of days? A week? I still have one set off to the side that I haven't been able to process for months. But ultimately, the number one question we're always asked is how to delete a negative review. You can't. Believe me, I wish you could. You simply can't. The platforms don't allow you to, for a variety and mostly good reasons. The sanctity of good reviews won't be violated by business owners who simply say, I don't like that review. So what are you left to do? So ultimately, you have to respond. And putting together the right response, even to a negative review, can be a positive impact to your business. So we're going to talk about Bob's Lawn and Landscapes. Gary, any guy, was not happy. I asked for a yard cleanup and mowing. I picked companies from Angie's List and from neighbor referrals. Bob's crew didn't even show up on the scheduled date. When they did, grass clippings were blown into our flowers. The backyard was a mess. I tried calling but got voicemail. I'm sorry, but I didn't cherry pick this from an actual review somewhere out in Oregon. So hopefully nobody recognizes it. But you start looking at that and saying, okay, how do you even begin to respond to something like this? Could it be factually accurate? Could be it inaccurate? Could the times have gotten mixed up? There's a lot of things that come together into the factor of what made this review. To the average reader, someone's going to look at that review and say, that sounds pretty legitimate. So what do? How many of you have actual brick and mortar locations where you stand face to face and look at your customers? You know what? Imagine, if you would, someone walks into your store, goes up, bing! I would like to talk to a manager. I don't know about you, but that makes the hair on the back of my neck stand up whenever someone says that. Bottom line is what if the clerk behind the counter then just looked at that person, didn't say anything, and walked away? What do you think the blood pressure is going to be like of that customer? Do you think that's going to help the situation or hurt the situation the next time that person talks to anybody? That's going to be bad. So what we're going to do, you need to show that you hear them. I'm going to go down a very tiny bunny path. I'm going to start going through some ideas, tips, and tricks. Don't worry. I can have this presentation emailed to you later with some additional notes. Just see me after. So when I say hear them, of course, it's a fun little analogy. Or take the high road. One of the biggest challenges with responding to any kind of online review is, I'm going to show them they're wrong. It doesn't work that way, because no matter whether the reviewer is correct, incorrect, in the right, in the wrong, doesn't matter. Bottom line is they're the customer. Other customers are going to identify with them. They're not going to know the whole story. So you know what? Take that traditional customer service approach. Take the high road. Express empathy. Probably in managing online reviews, if I had to use one word that you should take out of here, no matter what, and always look at with your reviews, is empathy. Not sympathy. The customer's not always right. It's empathy. Just recognize the frustration they have with the situation. But also show that with that review, you're taking action. That this isn't something, yeah, I heard you, yeah, we'll work on it, we'll try, yeah, maybe we'll try better next time. That will get stood out no matter what. But also, have a resolution. Now, this sounds like a lot to pack into an online review. But ultimately, when you're crafting reviews, a very simple rule of thumb. You know what? Make sure your response matches the review. So if someone said, hey, these guys were great, and that was it, hey, high five, thanks, is just fine of a reply. But someone like Gary Any guy who put a pretty solid paragraph together, okay, this means it's time to give them a little more thoughtful of a reply. So let's take a look at Gary again. So how should we reply to this? So let's first start by saying, hello, Gary. Thanks for bringing this to our attention. How often in your customer service experiences are you completely unaware that something bad even happened? Show that you're taking the high road. You're not calling them out. You're not saying, hey, BS, right out of the gate. No, you're recognizing that this. I'm sorry that our team didn't deliver to your expectations. Yes, being in the service industry, I completely understand what a customer's expectations are not always based on reality. Completely recognize that and understand that. But you know what? This is going to be seen by everybody. So I'm sorry that our team didn't deliver to your expectations. This morning, I spoke with our team supervisors and the crew who were at your home. We strive to do better. The simple way of responding in that situation is identifying with people saying, hey, oh man, we recognize we messed up. I talked to the people involved and I talked to the supervisors. We don't want this to happen again, and I'm going to show you that I've taken action on this. Now, is action like this exactly what they're looking for? Maybe or maybe not. But anybody else who's reading that review is going to recognize, ooh, this was a situation they took seriously. Ultimately, showing them that, hey, we want to have some kind of resolution here. Would love the chance to make it right with you. Can you give me, Bob, a call on my direct line and his phone number? I know it's sometimes a little scary, but putting direct contact information into a review response adds a level of personalization and personal responsibility and action that anybody else who sees that is going to have value. All of a sudden, the value of this person's review, accurate or not, is compounded by saying, hey, this is so important to me, I'm going to make sure that you can connect with me and talk to me directly. You look at the length of the response and the actions situated compared to that review. All of a sudden, someone reading that review, ooh, man, it sounds like they screwed up for Gary Any guy. But it looks like they turn around and are going to make every effort to make it right. But there's a trap. And never, ever, 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 I couldn't fill the screen with enough never, evers. Never, ever, ever publicly offer discounts, exchanges, or refunds. Why? Because you know every Tom, Dick, and Harry is going to turn around and say, hey, I want 25% off my next service, or I want a discount on the next round of stock that I buy. So I'm going to make a complaint online and collect that discount. However you settle things is up to you. However, publicly is an important thing. When we, jumping back to that resolution, can you give me a call on my direct line? That conversation is offline. And whatever deal you decide to strike there is fine, but publicly and online, you're not offering anything. And that's probably one of the best tips that we offer in terms of how do you respond to a negative review. First things first, let's take it offline. Let's take it outside. Well, maybe not quite outside in the traditional sense. Don't immediately ask for them to delete or change a review or rating. When I said you can't delete a negative review, you as the business can't. The person posting the review can change it. They have to jump through some hoops, but deleting it is possible. But when I say jump through some hoops, strap in, it's going to be a couple of weeks. But publicly calling them out and say, hey, yeah, we made everything right. Can you give us one more star? Don't do that publicly. How many of you are on Facebook? Quick show of hands. Have you ever changed someone's political opinion on Facebook? Guessing no. Nobody's going to win a flame war. If you get into an argument in a review thing, the only person you're hurting is yourself. Also, take it offline. You're never going to prove yourself right as a keyboard warrior. Take it offline. One of the primary reasons all of that's important is to the reader of the review, 3 months later, you're just losing value. You're losing trust, you're losing dignity with it. Don't. Never, hey, you changed this review and maybe I'll drop off a free load of compost next time around. Any kind of manipulation of a review, believe it or not, there is a 7th ring of hell for Google. And if you start trying to manipulate reviews or that, you're going to find out. And let me tell you, you wave at someone as they're trying to hold on to the anchor sinking into the sea. You're not going to get out of it. Keep up front, keep clean, and remember, cuts heal, bones mend. Google is forever. And again, no one ever wins an online flame war. Modern politics proves it. But you know what? Sometimes it's not good enough. You're going to have that person who is like, no, that nice review, I don't want to take it offline. I want to have this discussion through my keyboard. Keep saying, hey, look, I'd love to connect with you again. Give my office a call. Can we set up an appointment? Things like that. Don't give in to the bait. Don't try to say, okay, since this is going to happen in this arena, let's do it. It's going to be a gladiatorial fight, and guess what? None of us are Russell Crowe. Provide personal or direct contact method. And I know that might sound, again, a little counterintuitive that we said, hey, put your personal phone number in there, things like that. Try to avoid doing something like sales@mybusiness.com. Nobody's going to like that. Take personal responsibility for it, because ultimately, when people buy and people look at reviews, people like working with people they know, or people like working with people they trust. And again, I know I've said it a whole bunch of times, no one really does win online arguments. And you see this sometimes where, say, some business owners will say, I'm going to prove myself right no matter what. Sad news is online consumers simply don't believe them. If you are getting into that discussion offline, leave your emotions out of it. Stick to your documented facts. Yes, my crew arrived 15 minutes late on On Bob's review, yep, my crew arrived 15 minutes late. Yep, they didn't do a good job. Okay, this is what we'd like to do about it. All of it online. But as soon as you start pouring the gasoline of emotion into it, is when people start going off the rails. Whenever you're working with either online reviews, responses to social media, even in responses to emails, one of the things that gives you so much better standing is, you know what? I love this line. Per our last email, leave it documented and leave it in the light of day. How many of you have gotten a review from someone you know you've never done business with? It happens more and more. It's frustrating. We had it happen. There was another agency the next town over decided to open its doors, and the first thing they did is they had an intern go around to every other design and marketing agency within 30 miles and leave a horrible review, 1-star review about it. Well, there's a simple problem. All of us agency owners actually talk. Did this happen? Yeah, that happened to us too, and things like that. Well, when you get a whole bunch of people together that actually know how to go back to Google and say, this doesn't make sense, suddenly things can happen. Things can happen like that for you too. You can start addressing fake or fraudulent reviews. Now, I hate to tell you that you get a fake or fraudulent review, it's going to get it fixed overnight. No. But the first place you start is, we were talking earlier about that Google My Business app, and a lot of the fake or fraudulent reviews will come from Google. In that app, there's this little menu item through your online app called Flag as Inappropriate. Now, all the different platforms have something similar. Mark as fake, whatever the different platform is, you can flag it saying, hey Google, this review violates your terms of service. And I'm sorry, it's a dry and very boring read, but with your Google My Business account, you have the ability to actually look at the terms of service regarding reviews for Google. Might be a good idea to look through it, because all of a sudden you realize, well, hey, I might not be able to delete a negative review, but I can bring a fake review or a fraudulent review to the attention of Google. Now, what do you want to mean by a fraudulent review? That's where the terms of service comes in. There's like 6 paragraphs that go through it. But let's say one of your competitors leaves a fake review against you. Well, that's actually against the terms of service of Google. You can report that as inappropriate, and as you go through the menus and actually talk through, gives you the opportunity to start addressing it. So, even if it's fake and fraudulent, don't call them to the mattresses. Say, I'm sorry, we don't have your name on record. Can you give us more information about the dates of service or the products that you order, or give additional information? Because for most people reading reviews, that's secret, like, okay, this guy's fake. Don't trust that review. Understanding the platform's terms of service. Another example, fraudulent review, someone who is, you can definitively prove that, hey, these people were never customers. And the process is not as difficult, sometimes time consuming, but not as difficult to prove it as you would think. The administrative interface, now that we're in the woods, the administrative interface allows you to go through and look at all the reviews, manage them, especially the ones that are flagged. There's actually a way to start escalating. Hey, dear Google, this review wasn't appropriate. Yep, there we go. That flag inappropriate reviews. Okay, I flagged it, now what? You know what, you can go down, I need more help, and you can do that. All of a sudden you start saying, okay, I want more help with customer reviews and photos, review removal issues, requests about reviews. All of a sudden you have paths you can go down to work with Google to address fake or fraudulent reviews. Does it always work? Yeah, most of the time. How long does it take? You know, we jumped in and started addressing the fraudulent review we dealt with. It took Google about 6 weeks to respond, and probably another 4 or 5 more for it to actually get resolved. So it's not a fast process, but if you stick with it, it can be effective. Like I said, not over quickly. Google will tell you the rules to play by to ultimately get it resolved. That's a lot to talk about for someone who had a bad experience. But what can we do with someone who had a good experience? Hopefully, everybody has more good than bad reviews. You know, nodding heads, shaking heads. Okay. Betty had a much better experience with Bob. Bob's did a full overhaul on my front and backyards, removed all the grass, and replanted with beautiful plants, shrubs, rocks, and gravel paths. A beautiful and quiet oasis. This one's actually from just outside Portland, Maine, but nobody hears from me. Okay. They were full service, even bringing in a landscape designer for us. Fair price, kind and polite staff, work done in a timely manner. I highly recommend them. I am sure most of you have gotten a lot of reviews like this. But it's important to respond to the positive reviews just as passionately as you respond to the negative reviews. People want to hear about good experiences and want to see that you value those good experiences as well. Step 1, make sure you thank the reviewer by name. One of the things that we caught one of our clients doing and went in with a ruler like a Catholic school teacher of old to crack the knuckles. You do not copy and paste review responses. It's a bad habit, don't do it. And to anybody looking at your business, it stands out. Avoid it. Best way to show that you're paying attention specifically to the review is starting by talking to them by name. Make sure you use your business name in the response. The purely selfish reasons behind that is it helps your Google ranking. It applies that whole conversation to your business name. Add keywords to the experience. Start talking about, oh, I'm really glad that this landscaping project turned out. I'm really fantastic that these trees and shrubs look so beautiful. All of a sudden you start using some of those keywords in the response to also help boost the traction with Google. So personalizing it can go a step further around, again, keeping it very readable. Hey, we're thrilled that you liked your garden makeover. Look at it, we really think the gravel paths turned out fantastic. But here's the hook. In that response, suggested, hey, have you ever thought about doing this? Or if we turned around in the fall and added this, invite them back. Say, we would love to be able to come in and do this work for you again. We would love to continue the discussion and continue the relationship. So when we get back to Betty and her front and back overhaul, Betty, thanks for giving Bob's Lawn and Landscapes a great review. We love how the perennial plants complement the shrubs. We've thanked her with her name, our name. We've personalized it. And now those shrubs will be amazing this fall. Be sure to get some pictures. Oh, pictures. We'd love to see them. That's encouraging a follow-up connection. Invite them back. Let us know if you ever want to add that water feature. Now, while every single business is going to be different, you start looking at how you can apply those review responses to encourage not only search engine performance, but the other people reading those reviews are going to better identify with it, are going to say, oh, well, I didn't know they did this as well. So when you start getting that reply that is structured, thought out, has keywords in it, it's also going to be fantastic for search engines. So as we look, say, with reviews overall, you know what, making sure that you respond in a timely manner. Again, timely manner has air quotes. Looking at that and saying, how quickly should we respond? You know what, ideally, within a week. Now, sometimes that can be an uphill battle. But also making sure that your business name is always in the reply, because that, again, association for search engines. Keywords and phrases, keep it readable and natural. Sounding robotic doesn't help, or sounding like you've cobbled it together from a couple other review responses doesn't help. And so this is a fantastic way to just kind of keep it natural, keep it flowing, and just try to identify and earn their trust. So getting into it, how do you monitor all of this stuff? Regretfully, you need to make monitoring a priority. How frequently or how intensely that comes is going to be up to you. Are you busier in the spring? Are you busier in the fall? Are you just busy anytime the ground is thawed? Looking at that, the busier you are likely, the more likely you're going to see reviews being posted. So if it's a key thing that, oh man, we are just so busy. It's so easy to take reviews and put them on the back burner. I'll get to it and I'll respond to it when it slows down. Only bad news is, why are you busy? You're busy because consumers need and want the services you're offering. That means how many people are researching and diving into your business with online reviews and that while you're busy versus while you're slow. Staying on top of it when things are busy, not always easy, but important. Triage the reviews. Sounds overly medical, it sounds a little doomsday-ish, but how many of you go through your email inbox and just go, oh, delete, 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 delete? No, you can't delete your reviews, but you can go through the reviews and say, okay, this is one that we should probably respond to quickly. Whether it's excessively positive or excessively negative, might be a good idea to jump on some faster than others. The reply should equal the review. Like I said earlier, if someone says, hey, these guys are fantastic, wonderful, great, love the service, hey, why don't you come back? Sometimes those quick little responses and those quick little replies with an invitation to come back, or hey, I'm sorry that really didn't go so well, give me a call, is going to be important. Don't give it to an intern. How many of you have interns? Just a couple. Interns can be hugely helpful, but they will have the keys to your brand and the keys to the very beginning of the sales cycle when they're managing reviews. Whoever is generating that review and talking about that review have the keys to the castle. Make sure they have your business's voice and best intentions in mind associated with that. Make sure you're doing it, especially right after or during busy times. Like I said, I know it seems like I'm repeating on a few things of, hey, this is really important, but making sure striking while the iron is hot and striking while the market is busy is crucial. Now, there are some tools out there that will make things easier. Specifically, Google Alerts. Anyone have an idea what those are? Google has a fantastic service called Google Alerts, google.com/alerts, that you can say, hey Google, anytime my business name is mentioned on a page you see, tell me. That applies to reviews as well. So if all of a sudden the local newspaper puts out this wonderful article talking about your sponsorship of a fall festival, hey, that's fantastic. Google will tell you about it. But if something goes sideways and there's a not so great review, Google will also tell you about it. Social mention. Now, these next two platforms are more paid services, so kind of treat them as you will. But social mention will give you also an entire dashboard. You can log into it and it will say, okay, here are a whole bunch of different online review platforms. Here's where you're mentioned, here's the replies, here's action that you can and should take with it. Mention.com, same kind of philosophy. Both of those have relatively, probably on par from anywhere from $15 to $50 a month that you can go in and have those tools available. That can be super helpful, especially when you're crunched for time and needing to manage multiple platforms simultaneously. Again, both of these cover the majority of the major platforms. So reviews are tied to sales. Make sure your reviews are part of your sales process. The sales process does not end when your physical labor begins. That sales process goes all the way through when the product is delivered, the project is done. Have you turned around and asked for a review? Now, asking for a review can be a little tricky. Believe it or not, most people, when they're asked for a review, will give you one. Make sure you encourage them to be honest. Even when you tell them that, most of the time it says, hey, yep, we'll give you a little bit better of a rating. Don't be afraid to email or call with a follow-up to a customer. Just, hey, you know what, we just finished up last week. We talked about when we were cleaning up the yard. Can you give us a review? So you didn't have a chance. Hey, is it something? Here's a link to our Google review page. Could you help us out? Those kind of follow-ups significantly improve the conversion rate. Instructions and a link to it can make it go even further. The term friction. When you start rubbing two objects together and that heat that's generated from the resistance. Sorry to go all high school science teacher on you. But the whole concept is the less friction you make between your connection with your customer and the review they can provide you, the easier it will be. Less friction is higher conversions. Make it easy for them. Give them the link. Give them instructions. Hey, you know what? If you can log into your Houzz account, here's a link to our page. You can just go straight there and leave a review. Train your team to start asking for those reviews at the time of service. That's going to give you people who are far more likely to give honest and good feedback. Is going to happen immediately at the time of service. But the boots on the ground and the people in the field are just the start of it. Make sure if you have that in-between layer of management, make sure they recognize how important it is to address the reviews, to talk about the reviews, and make those reviews, getting those reviews, a priority. But don't stop there. When the reviews are given, make sure those reviews become a training tool for your team. How often can you get better performance out of your team when you share a success story with them? Yes, it's always easier to go back and say, oh man, you guys really screwed up on this one. But how often can you encourage better performance by saying, hey, look, you guys were out at the Kowalskis last week. They loved it. we should make sure that we bring that same level of service to everybody. So, in the end, how can we make you better online reputation managers? Start with something very simple. Create a playbook. Create a set of rules or protocols that are standardized for everyone to follow. Making sure that when people are asking for reviews, they're asking with the same language. Making sure that they're saying, hey, make sure you go to this platform or that platform. Making sure that everyone's on the same page when it comes to presenting that request for a review from your brand. Don't just train people one at a time. When you get a lovely room full of people, a lot of good, beneficial questions come out of that. Yes, you guys get to ask questions later. But it also allows people to kind of be held to the same standard, that everybody from entry-level laborers to managers all have to participate in the training process. Documenting actions, language, and policy. Whether we like it or not, we live in a social media world. I know online reviews might not completely sound like social media, but if you don't have a social media policy with your company, I would probably recommend tag teaming with HR, if you have HR, or talking to your legal team to make sure that you have some kind of social media policy in there that also has some language of how do you conduct yourself online, because we also want to make sure that your employees can be your best online voice as well. Keeping online reviews within that umbrella is incredibly helpful. Just because you train once doesn't mean you shouldn't train again. We very frequently recommend that either twice a year or quarterly that you have a sit down with your team and talk about some of the reviews. How in depth you go, of course, is going to be completely at your discretion. But understanding how important it is to request reviews, how you request reviews, and how you behave in front of your customers requesting reviews is important. We worked with one HVAC company who it was yeah, we just finished your repair, and yeah, if you'd like, please get us an online review. You can find us at Google. What kind of reviews do you think they got? Standardizing, documenting, and giving good training for your people will ultimately get you good and better quality reviews. Sharing the reviews with your staff, again, is crucial to making sure that everybody knows what kind of job they're doing in their eyes of their customer. You get a fantastic review, you don't have to keep it secret. Don't be afraid to celebrate your wins. It's okay to take, hey, we just got this review on Houzz, and put it up on your Facebook page. We just got a wonderful new review on Home Advisor. Put it on your LinkedIn business page. Don't be afraid to also share those links onto other platforms. Your social media channels are not silos. You can promote across them and promote the reviews you get that will ultimately spur on additional people to leave reviews. Your website is the foundation of your online marketing. Making sure your success stories get put on your website is crucial. Hopefully I just didn't shut my presentation off. There we go. Social media to share reviews. How many of you take pictures with your job projects? Don't keep those pictures to yourself. One of the best and easiest things you can do to not only get more reviews, but generate more interest in your business is show, don't tell. sometimes those simple progress pictures of, hey, we're halfway through ripping out all of this landscape at the local bank, those progress pictures generate a lot of interest online. It can be huge benefits to that and also kind of spur additional questions. I know it's not necessarily directly review related, but someone posts, hey, we got a fantastic thing. You know what, hey, you probably have pictures of that job. Don't be afraid to share those pictures as well. So as I mentioned earlier, I will have this presentation online. If you can drop me your business card or something like that, I can email you a link to it. Also be available to add any questions. We also have a wonderful little ebook that will give you a whole bunch of other tips and tricks to marketing, broken down of a checklist of something you can get done yet still in 2020. And if I can do it, anybody can do it. Questions. I know I covered and kind of went on quite a bit, but anybody have any questions? Oh, go ahead.
So I tried to search engine optimization through my website,
Okay.
Before I did it, if I Googled, say, like, outside Chicago, I would come up maybe like 7 pages down, which is fine, at least I came up. Because after I did what Rich told me to do, I don't even come up with it.
Okay.
And then I gave up.
No, that's.
Like, you need to get back to it.
What I would probably do is there are a couple tools. Actually, talk to me a little bit. I'll give you my email address. I can email you. There's some SEO online auditing tools that are free that you can go through and review your site and be able to start getting into the reasons exactly why. Wix is a very, very fickle platform when it comes to SEO, so there may be some little things behind the scenes that might be impacting that. But like I said, I can email you some additional tools that might help diagnose that. No problem. Go ahead.
How about if you have reviews that are old, you haven't responded to, so we're coming back and responding to each one?
I would probably not worry about going back anything further than a year, maybe 6 months, depending on the number of reviews. So if you've got like 50 reviews and 30 of them are over a year old, I would just go ahead and just let those old reviews be old reviews, reply to some of the recent ones, and then continue replying, moving ahead. So it's not quite ignore the old ones. I mean, if there's real things that need addressing, jump in there. But for people who are looking at the review responses, jumping in 3 months later, 6 months later is almost not worth it. So kind of say, okay, I'm gonna go back 90 days. Reviews that are newer than 90 days, I'm gonna start replying to, and then reply moving forward. Does that work? Anything else? Go ahead.
When you're talking about bad reviews and what you can do about them, and about how to take it offline, we had one of 2 years ago. The reason I'm saying it's that like long, we monitored it. We've talked to this person offline. Every time we talk to them, everything we've discussed goes back online and brings up the review again. So at what point do you just stop?
I think you already have passed that point, especially because there's sometimes when you're dealing with some customers that may have other larger issues at foot, that can be kind of a symptom. So it might be a situation, okay, we're just not gonna pour any more fuel on that fire. We're just gonna let it be and let it fall away.
We tried to do that. We left it, and a year later, they popped back up. It's been a year, and they still haven't done anything. I'm like, oh my gosh.
That's where you can use that flag as inappropriate, and depending on the platform. And Google will give you the opportunity to have a little bit of commentary in there and say, hey, look, we've been back and forth.
Great.
They keep adding fuel to it, we keep responding, and it just, there's no good resolution. I don't know if there'll be any outcome to that, but flagging that review and bringing it to a moderator's attention can be helpful.
Thank you.
No problem. You had your hand up.
You had mentioned earlier that you had a bad review you were like kind of putting off for a little while. I was just curious how you plan on like tackling that after there being like a period of a couple months. Is it just like so things would simmer down?
That review in particular is just clearly fraudulent and really derogatory. And it's one of those things where it's like, does any kind of response, because you're going to, I know this might sound counterintuitive, but everything I said can be, in your situation, might be a little different. So with something like that, if someone's review is clearly off the rails, it may be better to say, okay, you know what, we're just gonna leave this one. This person was not a customer, this person was that. Giving a little bit of a review. Thanks for your feedback. We don't recognize you, your name. When did you work with us? Or something like that is going to be probably the best way to address and handle that. Just simply because it's like, you know what, we see this sometimes with our lodging clients, where all of a sudden it's like, okay, they've got a review for someone who stayed with us a year ago, but they're just posting the review now, and it deals with the situation that's long things. Sometimes just, sorry, you had a bad experience, please contact me, and just try to leave it, because you know sometimes poking it might aggravate it further. So just sometimes just leaving that generic reply, and that is going to be the probably best way to go. I don't know if that answers what you were going for. You had your hand up?
If you flag something as inappropriate, does that show up next to the review?
No, it doesn't. It's when you flag something as inappropriate, that is completely just eyes only for Google and yourself. It's not like the reviewer gets notified that, hey, they flagged your review as inappropriate. They don't notify them of that.
So you had mentioned not trying to be right in your response.
Right.
So I read one from another company where this client had run them apart, they didn't call Digger's hotline, they were on my neighbor's property, all these things. And in the response from the business owner, they referenced their dig number, they referenced the plat of survey. But for me as someone in the industry or maybe a potential client, I was comforted by that, and I thought, way to go on them, they've got their documentation, they did their job. So at what point is that
And
too much?
No, I don't think that's a good situation where I don't think it's too much. And again,
Could you repeat what you said?
oh, sorry. He had a situation where he had I don't know, your review or another, it was another company's review that someone had pretty much been upset with them because, you know what, they didn't call Digger's hotline, they were on their neighbor's property, they didn't follow recommended safety standards, and then the company replied, but yeah, here's our Digger hotline case number with it, and demonstrated that, no, we actually did follow recommended safety standards. Got it right so far? Okay. And he asked, well, what do you do, how do you handle that? Because that detail of a reply is comforting to someone who then turned around and read that review, where if it would have just been a statement, hey, let's take it offline, you wouldn't have had that side of the story. In that situation, I think that's a fantastic example of saying, hey, you know what, that was critical information to include in there, but I would have still said, hey, but let's talk about this in more detail offline. That way, here's my direct contact information. But I think to your comment was, I think, directly on point that, no, hey, we did call Digger's hotline, we did do the 811, and here's all the information for that, is going to be reassuring, but it's also, again, that documented fact and not confrontational. Go ahead.
Is there any way to know that, let's say you have so many good ones and you have a couple bad ones, people that are looking at that, how do they, is there any testing to see how they react to it?
I don't know if there's been testing with that, but there has been documented results that if you have nothing but good reviews, people start getting a little suspicious. People start getting a little leery that the occasional mid-range review or even negative review that you've responded to can make you appear more genuine. So yeah, nobody likes Nobody likes bad reviews, but at the same time, it's like, once in a while, okay, you know what, but we demonstrated, we responded to it. So I think sometimes consumers will feel that, hey, you know what, negative reviews they stink, but sometimes they can help you.
Well, would you use something like, I'm sorry, we're just not, you know, when you finally get the bad one?
What I would do is,
looking to be perfect, but we're not.
you're going to want to, you're not going to want to craft it where, yep, no, we're not perfect, things like that. You're going to want to find something that's going to fit into your brand language, but say, hey, look, acknowledging and saying, hey, look, I'm sorry we screwed up. Yes, would love to find a way to make it right with you, contact us offline. But acknowledging it and demonstrating, saying, hey, you know what, we're using this as something we're learning from as well, I think would be the way to approach it. I don't always like saying, hey, we're not perfect, and leave it at that. But, and I don't know if I'm answering your question quite the way you're looking for in that regard, but having a negative review and responding to it is still going to be a good thing, but I wouldn't go hunting for a negative review, if that makes sense. You had a question?
So when we solicit for review, can we go ahead and send links to top 3 different Facebook, Yelp, and Google?
Absolutely. You had asked that when you solicit for reviews, it's going to be helpful to send them links in that solicitation. Kind of sounds different, but when you reach out to them and say, yes, the more links you can provide and say, hey, you know what, if you can give us any kind of details about your project in your review, that would be helpful. The more you can coach them and help them, the easier it is. It gets back to that friction. And the easier you can make it. And a departing thought when it comes to when you ask for reviews, make sure you look at the platforms you're supporting reviews on. Each of them have very specific rules on if you can reward for reviews or not. Most will say if you reward someone with a positive review, that violates their terms of service and you can lose access to your account or get blocked completely. So just when you're asking for reviews, make sure that it's like, hey, give us a 5-star review and we'll knock 10% off your next bill. Yeah, you're going to run into trouble with that really, really quickly. Thank you very much. I'd like to thank iLandscape for having me.